Welcome to the fourth of 5 video lectures on Shakespeare's tragedy, Hamlet. All right, so we're going to start off with Act 4. Remember, at the end of Act 3, Hamlet has just murdered Polonius. He thought he was murdering the king. He thought he was murdering Claudius, who was hiding behind the arras in his mother's closet. But in fact, he killed Polonius accidentally instead, and he's dragged the body off at the end of Act 3. Act 4 opens up immediately with that moment with the king and the queen, with Claudius and Gertrude, trying to figure out what's just happened. And so Gertrude reveals, for the most part, she reveals that her son has killed Polonius. But let's take a look at what she does say. She doesn't reveal everything that Hamlet said, and I think that's telling, and I think that's important. So I'm going to scoot down here. So the king asks Gertrude, where is he gone? Where is Hamlet gone? Right in line 24. We're in Act 4, Scene 1, right at the beginning. And the queen says, to draw apart the body he hath killed. So he's dragged the body off stage somewhere. She doesn't know where. Or whom his very madness, like some ore among a mineral of metal's base. So the simile here is that he is very mad. He's mad. Now remember, at the end of Act 3, Hamlet told his secret. He said, I'm not really mad. I'm only pretending to be mad. Only Horatio knew that before. Now Gertrude knows it too. But it's very telling. She doesn't reveal that here. She continues to say, yes, he's been in his madness, but for a moment he paused in his madness. But she doesn't reveal the secret, though. She doesn't say he's only pretending to be mad. She just says, in a moment he paused, like some ore among a mineral of metal's base. So imagine like a gold or a silver, right? Among, say, iron or brass or some other. I'm not very good at metallurgy, so I'm not giving the best examples of what these mean, right? But he's pure. There's a purity here that she's using in the simile. Shows itself. Hamlet shows himself pure. He weeps for what is done. So that's what Gertrude says. And we could read that as an embedded stage direction, right? Maybe at the end of Act 3, as Hamlet was pulling the body off, he wept. I don't think there's anything in the text, though, that suggests that. So that's not my reading of this. I don't think if you're playing Hamlet, that this line means, okay, you should be crying, weeping for what you've done. I think Hamlet feels bad for what he's done, a little bit, but not to the point where he's weeping over it. His mind is obsessed with other bigger, well, I don't know if there's a bigger thing than murder, but he's too obsessed with this idea of revenging his father's murder and all these other things going on. I don't think he was weeping. I think the queen here is keeping his secret. I think she's saying he's mad, and he, for a moment, came out of his madness and felt sorrow for what he'd done. Yeah, I think this is telling about the queen and whose side she's on. All right, more on this. Ophelia and Gertrude get to take center stage in the second half of the play. That started in Act 3. I think it's going to continue in Act 4. They are more central characters than they had been. Hamlet's still the central character, so I'm focusing my conversation sort of around his travails. But as the play progresses, we see Ophelia and Gertrude playing a more prominent role, starting here with her, I would argue, standing up to the king. Now, that's my reading. I'd love to hear people disagree with that and kind of take an alternate reading to that. But I think she's starting to stand up to him just a bit, and that's going to play out through the Act 4 and through Act 5 further, too. All right, let's continue on. So Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are on for a short moment. And then we jump to Act 4, Scene 2. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are sent off to fetch Hamlet. They bring Hamlet before the king. The king's main objective right now is trying to figure out where is the body? Where did you drag the body to? And Hamlet plays with him with his witty wordplay the same way when we get to Act 4, Scene 3 here, the same way that he did with Polonius, right? He's always besting people at words. Polonius was his main victim before. Victim now, literally. But now he's going to play those word tricks on Claudius here too, and he has been throughout the play. These are who he is constantly outwitting, right? All right, so here's the Claudius. Now Hamlet, where's Polonius? And he means it very matter of factly. There's no double meaning in these words. Hamlet says at supper. What kind of an answer is that? If I ask you where is the dead body, you say at supper. At supper, where? Claudius is just as confused as I would be if I were trying to figure out where Hamlet had dragged the body to. And Hamlet says, not where he eats, but where he is eaten. A certain convocation of politic worms are eaten at him. And eaten, in this case, a lot of times E apostrophe en means even. E-V-E-N, I think here it means eaten at him. Your worm is your only emperor for diet. We fat all creatures else to fat us, and we fat ourselves for maggots. Your fat king and your lean beggar is but variable service. 2 dishes, but to 1 table. That's the end. So a couple of things happening here. He's outsmarting him and outwitting him. Notice this is in prose, too. Right? Hamlet is speaking in prose, which is the language more of everyday people. Usually when the king and a prince speak to one another, we'd expect verse. But I think the reason Shakespeare chooses prose here is Hamlet has slipped back into pretending to be mad. And this certainly sounds like the kind of thing a madman would say. Where's the dead body? Well, he's at supper. Supper? He's at supper where he's being eaten by worms, right? But there's a deeper meaning, and Shakespeare packs a lot of deep meaning into prose, just like he does verse. Yeah, all of us, right? This is the stuff of the play, the whole existential crisis of life, right? All of us are eating or fattening ourselves up. If we think about the food chain, we fatten ourselves up for worms. Eventually, even the king, whether you're a king or a lean beggar, a fat king or a lean beggar, 2 dishes to but 1 table, and that table, is for the king, or for worms. All right, so I've highlighted this whole thing. Where did I leave off? A man may fish with the worm that hath eat of a king, and eat of the fish that had fed of that worm. What does thou mean by this? Nothing, but to show you how a king may go a progress through the guts of a beggar. And Claudius is bewildered, as anyone would be, right? Because Hamlet is pretending to be mad, but also it's just he's outsmarting him, but he also sounds like a madman or a fool. Where is Polonius? In heaven. Send thither means there, send thither to see. If your messenger find him not there, seek him in the other place yourself. Right? Quite lovely, the other place being hell. If he's not up in heaven, he's in hell. And you'll be in hell soon enough, so you can go there yourself to find him. Which is both a nice play on words, but also a threat. Right? Where are you headed next? You're going to hell. And remember, when he saw him praying back in Act 3, Hamlet had a chance to kill Claudius there, but he didn't, because he didn't want to send him to heaven while he was praying. He wanted to make sure he was sent to hell. So we get some nice, very threatening kind of language. The king knows. I mean, he's smart enough to realize he's in some danger here. Anyway. But if indeed you find him now within the month, you shall nose him, smell him, as you go up the stairs into the lobby. So the king sends his attendants off to go get the body, and then he continues to talk to Hamlet, and he says, for your own safety, we have to send you to England. You've committed a murder. People are going to want your head for this. We're going to send you. Now, really, Claudius is protecting himself, but he has a point. I mean, if Hamlet's done something horrible here, and in order to avoid revenge or we're going to send you away for your own protection. Hamlet, this deed for thine especial safety, which we do tender, as we dearly grieve for that which thou hast done, must send thee hence with fiery quickness. Therefore prepare thyself. The bark is ready. A bark is a ship. The bark is ready, and the wind at help. To associates tend, and everything is bent for England. For England? Aye, Hamlet. So remember, the play set in Denmark, but Hamlet is to be sent to England, and the idea was he was to fetch some tribute from the English and bring it back, so some state business. He was going to go take care of that as prince. Anyway, the king is going to get rid of Hamlet for a while, and not just for a while. So let's jump down and skip a few lines and just jump to the end of the scene. And the king, alone on stage, reveals to us, the audience, his real intent. So he has given some letters to Rosencrantz and Guildenstern to deliver to the king. Those letters say, go ahead and execute Hamlet for me. Go ahead and kill Hamlet while he's here. By letters congruing to that effect, the present death of Hamlet. Do it, England. And remember, he's just talking to us or talking to himself in soliloquy. No one else knows about this plot. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, it's not completely clear, but my reading is they don't even know what they're up to. They don't even realize. They know they're doing the king's bidding. They know they're doing what they've been told to do, but I don't think they know what's in the letters. But the letters say, kill Hamlet once he's there. Do it, England. For like the hectic in my blood, he rages. And thou, England, he's talking, imagining himself talking to England or to the king of England, and thou must cure me, till I know 'tis done, howe'er my haps, my joys will ne'er begin. I can't have joy, I can't have happiness until Hamlet is dead. And so Claudius has already murdered the old king, the old Hamlet Sr. Now he's going to kill the young Hamlet as well. All right, jumping ahead, scene 4. Scene 4 is a very short scene, but has an important soliloquy, so we'll pause just long enough to take a look at some highlights of that. So scene 4, Hamlet's on his way to England, and on the way he bumps into Fortinbras. I haven't talked a lot about Fortinbras, but I did say earlier in the video lectures, Fortinbras represents the international part of the play. And it's worth paying attention to his doings, and he's going to show up again later in the play, actually at the very end of the play as well. And right now Fortinbras is off, headed to Poland, and he's about to wage war over a little tiny piece of land. And Hamlet bumps into him as he's getting ready to go to England on the way. To get from Fortinbras is up in Norway. To get from Norway to Poland, you have to pass through Denmark, and there was a little bit of business earlier in the play where that permission was given to Fortinbras to pass his troops through. Anyway, Hamlet gets talking with the captain, and the captain says, yeah, this piece of land we're going to fight for, it's worthless. It has no value. Why fight for it? Truly to speak, and with no addition, we go to gain a little patch of ground that hath in it no profit but the name. We're just going for the sake of saying we won the victory, for the little bit of fame that comes with it. And Hamlet then goes on, and 2,000 souls and 20,000 ducats will not debate the question of the straw. There's this idea, right, that the piece of land they're fighting over isn't even big enough to bury 2,000 people. It's such a small, worthless piece of land. Certainly not worth 20,000 ducats. I don't know how much a ducat was worth in Shakespeare's time, but it sounds like quite a bit of money, and certainly not worth this piece of land. The captain and Hamlet, as they discuss, the audience realizes, certainly not worth fighting for. They go on. It's a short scene. The captain and him are already gone within 30 lines. Rosencrantz leads, is on stage, hears this conversation too. Anyway, the point of this scene really is to get to Hamlet's soliloquy and just take a look at it. And we won't look at the whole thing here, but I will look at just these closing lines. So Hamlet throughout the play is reminded of other people taking action. And that's kind of the idea, is thought versus action that we see. And Hamlet has been accused by critics often of spending too much time thinking, not enough time acting. And later in the scene, we're going to see a contrast to that when Laertes gets here, who's all action, not enough thought, perhaps. So anyway, Hamlet here, he criticizes himself for overthinking things, as he's done before. He did it with the player, when he did the Hecuba scene. How can this actor get himself so worked up over Hecuba that he can cry, change the color of his face, right? How can he get himself... I have a father who's been murdered, and all I can do is sit here and overthink things. Same thing. Fortinbras, this captain, there's about a war about to be fought over some silly piece of land. That's no reason for a fight, but yet they go off and do it. They take action. And here I am not taking action, still overthinking things, still letting Claudius live. Remember, he had the chance in Act 3, could have killed him, but he kind of thought it through and said, no, I can't kill him while he's praying because that'll send him to heaven and not to hell. He thinks too much, maybe, and he seems to realize that or agree with that criticism in this soliloquy. So let's take a look at the end of it, line 59. How stand I then that have a father killed, a mother stained, excitements of my reason and my blood, and let all sleep? Well, to my shame, I see the imminent death of 20,000 men. You might have noticed earlier it was 2,000 men. Hamlet sometimes exaggerates, but that's okay. That's okay. He's making his point. The imminent death of 20,000 men that for a fantasy and a trick of fame go to their graves like beds. So imagine you going off to your bed to sleep. These guys are all going off to their grave like that. 20,000 of them, or 2,000 of them. Either way, a whole bunch of people are just going to die. But they're acting. They're going to do action and not just overthink things. They go to their graves like beds, fight for a plot whereon the numbers cannot try the cause, which is not tomb enough and continent enough to which is not tomb enough and continent to hide the slain. Piece of land, like I said earlier, not big enough even for these 2,000 men to be buried on, yet they're going to fight for it. And this, instead of when I hear that, I kind of think, oh my gosh, that sounds horrible. That's not a reason to take action exactly. But Hamlet sees it a little differently, and he says, you know what? I'm going to be all action from now. And we're going to find out he is. In Act 4, he is going to take some action. We'll get to that in just a moment. From this time forth, my thoughts be bloody or be nothing worth. Right? From this point forward, I am all bloody. I am going to commit acts of violence. I am going to act, not overthink. Now, he said this before in the play, but here we are. All right. Between scene 4 and 5, some time passes. So if we think about the play in big chunks of time, Act 1 sort of stands alone. That was the ghost story scene. Acts 2 and 3 go together, and this beginning part of Act 4 goes into that chunk. So there was some 2 months of a break between Act 1 and 2. Then there's a chunk of time that kind of goes together. And now another couple of months have passed. There's sort of 3 big chunks of time. And the reason we know that some time has passed is because Hamlet went off to England, and he's back, or about to be back. Laertes, when his father was murdered in Act 3, was in France. He'd been in France since Act 1 when he asked permission to leave. He's back. That takes some time to travel from France to Denmark. So we know and also Ophelia. And we're going to get to Ophelia here. Ophelia is a very different character now after the loss of her father, as we're going to get to right now. So this is Ophelia. Act 4, Scene 5, the Queen and Ophelia interact. This is at court. In fact, I've got an image. Let me share my image that I was preparing before. Here we are. So this is an image of Ophelia. This is an illustration that was made in the late 18th or 19th century at some point. Ophelia here with her flowers. We're about to see those. We see the Queen. Look how grumpy the king looks in this moment. We're about to get to these lines. And here's Laertes. We're going to see Laertes quite upset at this. Now, she makes 2 appearances. Actually, I showed this image just a little too early because this is going to be her second appearance. This first one, Laertes isn't there yet. It's the Queen, and the king will be there in just a moment too. All right, let's jump back. Kind of keep this image in your head. This is, again, sort of like the mousetrap scene. The court is gathered together. All right, let's see here. Let me jump back to my text. Where is the beauteous majesty of Denmark, says Ophelia, referring to the Queen. How now, Ophelia? What's up? And Ophelia sings. A lot of her lines are songs, snippets of ballads that she's singing, right? The Queen says, alas, sweet lady, what imports the song? Why are you singing to us? Why this song? And it seems to distract Ophelia. Say you? No, nay, pray you. Mark. Mark means listen. Don't talk, listen. and she sings for her again. And listen to some of the ballads, the tunes that she sings don't make perfect, or are harder to decipher than others. But here's one that's much easier. He is dead and gone, lady. He is dead and gone. At his head a grass green turf. At his heels a stone, a gravestone. This is her father. Her Polonius has died. And imagine also the grief. Not only has her father died, not only has he been murdered, but it was the man she loved who did the murder. Ophelia has slipped into insanity. This scene is often, scholars will call this Ophelia's mad scene. I don't really like that name for it, so I prefer to call it Ophelia's flower scene. I think that's a more fitting name for the scene, so I'll call it Ophelia's flower scene. But she has, we do acknowledge, though, she has slipped into, a really dark mental place here. And unlike Hamlet, who was pretending to be mad, Ophelia is not pretending. She is genuinely broken in this scene, in Act 4. And it's all rooted in her father's death, right? The same thing that Hamlet gets lost in his own melancholy and his own thing when his father dies. So does Ophelia. We're going to see Laertes as well here later in the act too. She starts passing out flowers. Oh, wait. Before we get to the flowers, just a moment. So she's on stage, she's singing. I want to point out, there's lots of stuff here. Tomorrow is St. Valentine's. We could go through all of this, but I want to just point out some snippets of her songs that are quite revealing, and I think this one's important. Ophelia singing, "Quoth she, before you tumbled me," tumbled to engage in sexual intercourse, "before you tumbled me, you promised me to wed. He answers, so would I had done by yonder sun, and thou hadst not come to my bed. I would have married you if you wouldn't have had sex with me. But you promised to wed me before we had sex, but now you..." This is the bit of her song. What is it? What does it mean? And that's up to interpretation. Here's my reading of it, though. I think she's singing this song because... So before I say my reading of it, one important question every production of Hamlet needs to answer: are Hamlet and Ophelia, were they sexually active? I think that's a very important question for the play. And a production, and it's open to interpretation. Different productions are going to interpret this differently. I've seen productions recently where Ophelia is actually pregnant in this scene. I think only one time I've seen that. That's a really interesting reading. That's not usually the reading that she shows up and she's got a big belly, but it's a fascinating choice to make here. You can choose that they've not engaged in any sort of sexual activity, but I do think it's a conversation the director and the actors need to have. And here, I think this line, this is my reading, I think she's saying, yeah, we did. Hamlet promised me we would get married someday, and we've had sex. And then he didn't. And then that didn't happen. And I think that's why she's chosen this particular set of song lyrics to sing. I think that she is revealing something here. I think Shakespeare put this here for a reason. Now again, I point out that this is my reading. I ask you, think about other parts of the text. Think about if you were putting this on stage, what reading would that be your reading? And I hope some people will disagree with me. I want people to sort of disagree and go the other direction as well, and see their relationship as something purer, perhaps, right? Anyway, I think that's what this text is saying. But again, that's one reading, not a definitive reading of those lines. She exits. Ophelia exits. Horatio, who is on stage, exits. And the king, Claudius, comments, "Oh, this is the poison of deep grief. It springs all from her father's death." It's interesting, with Hamlet, he doesn't know why Hamlet was so melancholy back in Act 1. He had to have spies figure it out for him. But here it's clear to him. He can see this more clearly. The poison of deep grief. And I think poison's an important word here. We saw poison in Act 3. Hamlet used the word, they do but poison ingests. We keep seeing this word poison come up. Poison is how the king, the current king, killed the former king. He poisoned him. And I would make the case that it's not just her father's death that has caused this, but the whole state of Denmark has been poisoned by what Claudius has done. There's this poison that's in the very deepest roots of Denmark. and that poison has resulted in Hamlet killing Polonius. Hamlet's still responsible for what he did, but with that said, it was rooted in the original murder that Claudius did. And the grief that we see Ophelia experience here, similarly, is rooted in that original poisoning. So I think Shakespeare puts the word poison here for a reason. It's to remind us of the original poisoning of the old king, of Hamlet's father. Let's continue on. Now, this is the shift. I said Laertes, he's been gone. He disappeared in Act 1. Well, he didn't disappear. He asked for leave. He said, I'd like to go back to school in France. The king said yes. His father said yes. He's been gone. Now he's back. And we get here the report, and this is still Claudius talking in the same passage. And he says, her brother is in secret come from France, feeds on his wonder, keeps himself in clouds. Laertes is back, and he is angry. And here comes a messenger to say, okay, Laertes not just back to Denmark, but he's here. He's outside right now. He's about to storm in. Young Laertes, in a riotous head, o'erbears your officers. The rabble call him lord. So not only is he here to get revenge for what happened to Polonius, he is here, and the rabble are calling him lord. This is an uprising. This is a coup against Claudius. And Claudius has to figure out how to deal with it. A noise within, and even this line too. The people outside, choose we Laertes shall be king. Laertes shall be king. Laertes king. The people are ready to overthrow Claudius at this point. That escalated quickly, but it does signal just how strong politically Laertes is. And how strong Polonius was politically. So I kind of talk about him as a bumbling old fool in the play, but the people don't see him that way, and maybe my reading, this should shift my reading just a little bit. He certainly had the love of the people, and his murder has made them angry. Laertes comes in, oh thou vile king, give me my father. Calmly, good Laertes. That drop of blood that's calm proclaims me bastard. No, I am a true-born son of my father. If I don't revenge him immediately, then that suggests that I'm a bastard, that I'm not actually my father's son, right? And this is a very different take than Hamlet's. Hamlet, when he learns his father was murdered, he thinks a lot, does a lot of thinking, thought, not action. Laertes, look at this, all action. Let's keep going. Oh, the word cuckold. If you don't know the word cuckold, it's a man who's been cheated on. He says, if I don't revenge my father, then I'm calling my father a cuckold, a man who's been cheated on. You'll see that word a lot in Shakespeare. It has kind of a lowbrow, vulgar kind of connotation, but it's a very important vocabulary word to know from Shakespeare's time. All right, let's keep going. And here we see again, damn the consequences, right? Laertes says, let come what comes. Only I'll be revenged most thoroughly for my father. I don't care what happens to me. I am going to get my revenge. Think how different that is from Hamlet, right? A very sharp contrast to Hamlet's slow, methodical planning and thinking things through. Now, Ophelia comes back on stage. And actually, this is the point where I should have shown the picture earlier. Because Laertes is here. Let me jump up and show it again. So we see here again, Laertes is just going to weep at seeing this. And this is the part she's going to pass out her flowers as well that I alluded to earlier. All right. Oh, and this is when Laertes sees her, he breaks down and he cries. So there's a big emotional shift. Laertes is a very emotional person. Makes sense. His father's been murdered. There's a lot of emotion to be had. He sees her. He calls her, "O Rose of May." Right? She herself is a flower. And I think that's important. That's a really important point to make. Laertes says, "Oh, Rose of May, dear May." And a rose of May, kind of the most important of the flowers, I think. I think of roses as sort of the most beautiful, or at least the most highly ranked flowers. If we had to put all the flowers on a list of which ones people, you give roses for Valentine's Day when you love someone, it's the best flower, right? That's Ophelia. She's a rose of May. Dear maid, and a maid means a virgin, so I kind of just argued she wasn't, but here's some textual evidence where at least Laertes thinks she is. Dear maid, kind sister, sweet Ophelia. Oh heavens, is it possible a young maid's wit, not only does he call her a maid once, but twice, he's really emphasizing he thinks that her and Hamlet did not do anything sexual together. A young maid's wit should be as mortal as an old man's life. And the old man is his dad, right? His world is falling apart. His father has been murdered, and now his sister, who he loves deeply, has slipped into this really dark mental place, into this madness. And she starts passing out her flowers. And this is a super important part. This is why I call this scene, I like to call it the flower scene. And I like that better than calling it Ophelia's mad scene. It's Ophelia's flower scene. And she passes out the flowers. There's rosemary. That's for remembrance. Pray you, love, remember. And there's pansies. That's for thoughts. There's fennel for you and columbine. So we see her passing out the flowers to different people as she's going along, and it's quite a beautiful, touching, and very sad moment as she passes out these flowers. You must wear your rue with a difference. I think she's giving the rue to the queen here, and rue has some other meanings, right? Of regret, perhaps. There's a daisy. I would have given you some violets, but they withered all when my father died. They say he made a good end. And she sings some more, but this is her last lines that aren't song. And then she does have a little bit more singing here, but these are her last lines that are her own, remembering the death of her father. Okay. Next up, Hamlet was on a ship to England. And we know, when I said time has passed, so when we get to the next scene, Hamlet's already on his way back. He didn't go to England. He didn't end up going to England. Instead, they were attacked by pirates, we find out. And he sends letters ahead. He sends 3 letters. One to Horatio, one to the king, one to the queen. And here's Horatio, and he reads his letter. And it's Horatio's job then to deliver the other 2 letters. He says, I have words. This is what Hamlet writes in the letter to Horatio. I have words to speak in thine ear will make thee dumb. Yet are they much too light for the bore of the matter. These good fellows will bring thee where I am. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern hold their course for England. So there's more on them. We're going to get to what happens to Rosencrantz and Guildenstern in Act 5. But Hamlet was abducted by pirates, but they were nice pirates, and they actually brought him back home per his request. Ere we were 2 days old at sea, a pirate, a very warlike appointment, gave us chase. And he ends up with the pirates, comes back. So not only is it a ghost story, a spy novel, but now it's a pirate tale too, right? Hamlet has everything, and even pirates. Although that's off stage, we don't get to see it. 2 other letters though, and I'm going to jump to the last scene of Act 4, Scene 7. I'm going to jump right down to so now, Laertes is calmed. Claudius has calmed Laertes down. And then the messenger comes in with letters. And it's interesting, we don't know, the messenger doesn't seem to know who the letters came from. They don't realize that we know that Horatio is to pass them out, but somewhere that got lost. I don't know. That's a puzzle for me. Anyway, the letters come, and these to your majesty, this to the queen. And it's interesting, we're going to hear the letter to the king, but we don't get the letter to the queen. So the messenger goes and delivers that one separately, and we are not going to get to read that one. So I think that's a fun little puzzle too to figure out. Lots of, that's the great thing about Shakespeare. All the little puzzles you get to figure out and play with. And if you're doing this on stage, or even just if you're playing this out in your own mind, your mind is its own theater. So many different things you can do with this. So many different readings. There are wrong ones. You can have an invalid reading that goes against the text and just doesn't make sense. But I can have a valid reading. Since Shakespeare doesn't tell me what the letter to the queen says, I play with it. So I'll talk more about that in a bit. Sailors, my lord, they say I saw them not. Laertes, you get to hear the letter. So here's the letter, and all it says is a much shorter letter from Hamlet. I'm back. It's basically a letter saying I'm back, and tomorrow shall I beg leave to see your kingly eyes, and I'll ask for your pardon, and then I'll recount the occasion of my sudden and more strange return. So I'll be back tomorrow, and I'll tell you how I got here. All right. And at this point, Claudius comes up with a plan. We are going to kill Hamlet together, right? And Claudius says, I will work him to an exploit. Now ripen my device. So this starts off. It's the king's plan, right? He tried to send him off to England to be killed. Didn't work. He's back. All right, Laertes, you can help me though. I've got another plan to kill Hamlet. I will work him to an exploit now ripe in my device, under the which he shall not choose but fall. And for his death no wind of blame shall breathe, but even his mother shall uncharge the practice and call it accident. We're going to make it look like an accident, but we're going to kill him. And here's how. Do you want to help me? Do you want to revenge him for what he did to your father? Laertes is fully on board with this idea. So let's get down to the plan. The plan actually takes a little while to materialize, but here we go. So here's the plan down to line 146. But good Laertes, will you do this? Keep close within your chamber. Hamlet return shall know you are come home. So we're going to let Hamlet know you're home. And then I'm going to bring you in fine together and put a wager on your heads. He, being remiss, most generous, and free from all contriving, will not peruse the foils. So he's setting up a match, a fencing match. They're going to fight each other. But, and here's the trick, right? Hamlet's not going to, he trusts everybody. He won't check the ends of the foils. They all should be baited. They should all have a little ball on the end that protects you from, this is not a real death match, fight to the death. It's going to be, but it's not supposed to be, right? When two people fence, you protect yourselves, wear gear, and you put little, you don't use, swords that can kill someone. But this one will, and there will be one sword that's unbaited, one sharp sword. And in a pass of practice, requite him, revenge, get your revenge on him for your father. And Laertes comes back and it's like, okay, yes, that's great. I'm gonna do you one better. I've got some poison. And he says that I bought an unction of a mountebank. An unction is a salve or a lotion, an ointment. A mountebank is like a traveling salesman. I've got this ointment and it's poisonous, so mortal. But dip a knife in it, where it draws blood, no cataplasm so rare, collected from all simples that have virtue under the moon, can save the thing from death that is but scratched withal. So again, when Shakespeare gets tough in the middle, just read the beginning and end. This poison is so mortal that nothing can save the thing from death. It's just a scratch withal. So we're going to use a sword that's not baited at the top. We're going to put poison on it, and then you can kind of hear them, like they have a backup plan for the backup plan, right? And then Claudius, here's his backup plan for the backup plan. We'll make this soft wager. When you are in your motion are hot and dry, as make your bouts more violent to that end, and that he calls for drink, all have prepared him a chalice for the nonce, a drinking vessel, whereon but sipping, if he by chance escape your venomed stuck, our purpose may hold there. So part 3 of the plan, I'm going to have some poison in a chalice, and when he asks for a drink because he's hot from the fight, and he takes that drink of wine, there'll be poison in it, and that will kill him too. So we've got 3 different ways this is sure to work. We've got a backup plan and a backup plan for our backup plan. Going to work. And then the end of the scene, though, the whole tone changes. Shakespeare plays with our emotions. It started off sad, violent, sad. There's a bit of a yo-yo effect here, right? And the queen comes in and announces that Ophelia drowned. She died. One woe doth tread upon another's heels, so fast they follow. Your sister's drowned, Laertes. Drowned. Oh, where? And then the queen goes into this beautiful description, beautiful but very sad description of Ophelia's death. There is a willow grows askant the brook, that shows his hoar leaves, and that's hoar means grayish colored leaves, in the glassy stream. Therewith fantastic garlands did she, Ophelia, make, of crowflowers, nettles, daisies, and long purples, that liberal shepherds give a grosser name, but our cold maids do dead men's fingers call them. So Ophelia took all the flowers and weaved them into a garland, and she dressed her head with these flowers, right? Then on the pendant boughs her coronet weeds, clambering to hang, an envious sliver broke, when down her weedy trophies and herself fell in the weeping brook. So most people read Hamlet with Ophelia as having died by suicide at this point, that she drowned herself, and that is the most common reading. I think it's worth looking at whether or not she died by suicide or not, or whether or not she drowned accidentally. most people are going to agree she died by suicide, and that's the more common reading. I think it's worth looking through these lines though to see if what we think. In some ways, the great thing about reading as opposed to performance is we get to sort of do both in our head at the same time. Most people are going to go with a reading that she dies by suicide. And here's this image that has been captured in sort of Shakespearean imagination. Her clothes spread wide, and mermaid-like a while they bore her up, which time she chanted snatches of old laws. So even as she's drowning, she's singing still. Remember, she was singing when we saw her before, as one incapable of her own distress, or like a creature native and endued unto that element. But long it could not be, till that her garments, heavy with their drink, pulled the poor wretch from her melodious lay to muddy death. Alas, then she is drowned, drowned, drowned. And I want to close just with looking at an image, a very famous image that this is Sir John Everett Millais, 1851 to 52, and we can see the willow growing next to a brook. We can see her garments all floating out. We can kind of almost see her singing, her flowers strewed there, and she's pulled down into the water. All right, so a very sad, very, very sad ending to Act 4. It's Shakespearean tragedy, not comedy. All right, we'll pick back up in the next video lecture with Act 5. Thank you for your attention.